I want to do something special today. We're going to receive our offering in a minute, but I want you to meet somebody. You ever heard that song? So you come to judge. Yeah. Now, when I don't want to ask you if you ever been to court before. Don't answer that. But but whenever you have someone like Miss Judge Lisa Colbert here with us today, we love her. I think I have gotten to know her from our efforts to help with youth in our community. And I'm going to have her come, and like they do in court, we're going to say, all rise. Would you all rise? Judge Lisa Colbert, come on up here, would you please? Come on. Give her a big hand. Come on, big hand. There you go, Judge. All right. You may be seated.
You're going to make them stand up.
Make them stand up. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Really happy to be here.
Now, tell me a little bit. Now, so you are, tell them who you are and tell me a little bit about yourself.
All right. Lisa Goldwire Colbert. I'm a native Savannanian. I'm a juvenile court judge here and have been for the last 7 years. Graduated Groves High School, Savannah State College then, now University of Georgia Law School. I'm a veteran of the Georgia Air National Guard for 6 years. That's how I paid for my, thank you. That's how I paid for my education. I've been married 26 years to the love of my life, E.J. Colbert. We share 3 daughters, 21-year-old twins and a 24-year-old, probably responsible for a few of these gray hairs that I have. And I'm just really happy to be here.
So you were practicing law?
I was practicing law here, beginning in Atlanta at a large law firm. I did that for about 1.5 years. Took some time off after our first child was born. I took a year off, came back to Savannah, practiced with Charles Bell and Associates, had my twins, took another year off. Then I started practicing at the Bankruptcy Trustee's office. Then I went to work for Judge Louisa Abbott, Superior Court. And then I went to work for the County Attorney's Office. And then I was appointed by the Superior Court judges to the Juvenile Court 7 years ago. And I've been there ever since.
It's been a pretty good career, I think. Yeah. All right. So now you're about to run again for office.
Yes.
This is new.
This is new.
What are you going to do?
So I've never run for office until now. I am now running to become a Superior Court judge to succeed the Honorable Judge James Bass, who will be retiring at the end of this year. And so that is a new endeavor for me.
New thing. So now this is one of my favorite questions. I want to do a piece. I'm going to do a work called The Pain from the Bench. And we always talk about the pain in the community, but you get to do some pretty difficult things as a judge. So what's the hardest thing about your judge? What's painful for you?
So probably the hardest thing is having to decide to separate a child from their family. As you know, I have 3 children of my own. I noticed and have watched how close they are to each other, how close they are to their family, their parents, our extended family. And so those are some of the toughest decisions that I have to make, is when I determine that a child needs to be separated temporarily, in most cases, from their loved ones.
So when you first put the robe on, right, and you walk in, and the bailiff says, "All rise," how does it feel? I mean, what is that like emotionally for that moment?
It's interesting. I've been in and around the courtrooms quite a bit. So the thing I will say, it reminds me that while we all have, and myself included, our own personal thoughts and beliefs, that when I put that robe on, when I walk in that courtroom and the deputy says, "All rise," while I am still who I am representing the state of Georgia. I have to put my personal views aside, my personal beliefs aside, and I have to follow and impose the law. And that's important, because the system wouldn't be what it was if each person who wears the robe could just do what he or she thought. And it's also challenging, because oftentimes I don't always agree with what the law may say needs to happen or what can't happen. But it's a reminder that I am representing the state and the system that I'm a part of. It has some challenges, but I have to work within the bounds of the law to address those.
Now, we as a church have been talking to her court about how we can help logistically. What are some things they need? People getting to court is a challenge. Right. You told me a story about how hard it was for a family to get to court. Wow.
So for those of you who don't know, the juvenile court is located out on Chatham Parkway, unfortunately on the way to the jail, called Griffin Drive. So I've had a family living in Windsor Forest, and I was shocked to learn that it took them 3 hours one way on the city bus to get to the courthouse. They took 3 buses between wait time for each bus. It was a 3-hour ordeal. And that was 5 years ago when I heard that story. I've never forgotten that. And it just reminded me of how challenging it can be to live in this community, particularly when you don't have a car and when you don't have resources. So I ask the question now, what time is a good time for me to schedule this hearing for you? Because the reason that mom told me that is I was scheduling her son's next hearing for 9 a.m. and she said, can you make it for 11 or later? And I said, sure. Is it your work schedule we need to accommodate? She says, no, I'm disabled, but it takes me 3 hours to get here on the bus.
Wow. So here's the story. You don't know this part. When we left her courtroom, we went to just kind of sit in on some cases to kind of get a feel of how our church, and we took some staff to see what we could do and how we can help bridge some of those gaps. When we left your courtroom, there was a family that was there that day, and they were trying to get from the court, and they were on the bus stop. So I'd heard this story from you early, so I drove past them, and I thought, that's that family. And something said, turn around and see if they need a ride. And something said, go where you're going. Something said, there was Holy Spirit. So I turned around, and I went and I said, can I shoot my wife who was with me? I said, you folks need a ride, you and your wife? She said, man, I'm trying to get to my job. I'm late already. And so I drove him to his job. Wow. And I thought, some kind of way, we've got to help people who are facing those challenges. Right. And so that's an amazing story. Right. So tell me, do you want to be a superior? What are you going to do now? What's going to be different about the new job that you want to get?
So what's different about Superior Court, obviously juvenile court, we deal with young people. Once they're involved with the court, we can keep them until they're 21. But for new cases, once they turn 17, they typically go to the adult system. So in addition to the age of jurisdiction, the subject matter, Superior Court deals with criminal offenses, family law, general civil litigation, also things most people don't realize, unemployment appeals, workers' comp appeals, tax appeals, condemnations when the government wants to take your property for public use. But at the end of the day, the big thing that's the same is we're dealing with people. So I happen to be a legal nerd, but I'm also a people person. And I'm a firm believer that if people choose to come to court or they have to come to court, the person that's wearing that robe should care about people. And they should make sure that people feel like they've been heard, that their rights have been protected. And if the decision doesn't go their way, they ought to know why. And that's pretty much how I practice.
Last question. You go home and you have to make a tough decision, right? So does it follow the judge home? Does it hurt a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does. And when I first started in this role as a judge, my dear colleague, Judge Burke, who's been a judge, and he's retiring this year, has been a judge for over 20 years between Recorder's Court and Juvenile Court. The first really tough case that I had where I had to decide to terminate a parent's rights permanently. And I left the bench. I couldn't even sign the order. The order had been pre-prepared because the parent had given up a long time ago. The parents had not been coming to court for some years before I got there. And the hearing took all of 20 minutes. And the attorney for the Department of Family and Children's Services put the order in front of me, expected me to review it and just sign it. And I couldn't. It was a part of me that felt like this should not be a 20-minute ordeal. Of course, the file was really thick, and I knew it had been going on for a longer period of time. So I took a recess, and I went and found Judge Burke, and I said, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. I might need to go get my old job back because I'm really feeling emotional about this. And he looked at me, and he said, you should feel emotional. You should never feel like it's just a normal thing for parents' rights to their children to be terminated. He said the day you stop feeling is when you need to go get your old job back. And he said, you'll be able to do it because somebody has to do it. And so that stuck with me. So, yeah, I do take it home. I do try to do things to, we call it self-care, because obviously secondary trauma, when you hear a lot of bad stuff over and over again, if you're not conscious of it, and if you don't believe it's affecting you, it's probably affecting you more than you think and can do some real damage. So I've learned I like to eat a lot. I play tennis. I use my faith and the love of my family. I have 5 dogs. That helps. And then I just try to laugh every day. And I also, it just fuels my passion to do what I can from where I sit to try to make things better. So I tell the story so that people in a position to make changes with transportation. I've told this story about the transportation to officials with Chatham Area Transit. I talk to a lot of policymakers. And so that really helps because I feel like I have to try to solve problems. I can't solve them all, but at least I can make those who are in a position to solve some of these problems aware.
Well, you know, we were going to talk to you. We call this a talk with the pastor. We were going to do this long before I knew she was going to run for office. And so I'm glad she came today. I'm thrilled that you came, and may God bless you in your pursuits.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Give her a big hand, people. Come on, give her a big, big hand. Wow.